There do I see my father. Lo, there do I see my mother and my sisters and my brothers. In the halls of Valhalla,
where the brave
they live
forever.
We were all passionate about the project, and we shot it in the worst conditions in Canada. And I think when you go through something that heavy, it stays on the film. So when you see it, you feel it, you pick it up. It's like osmosis. The audience senses there's a real suffering going on here, or there's a real struggle going on. It's just there. And he was happy. I was watching his face because he said, I'm really nervous what these guys are really like, because I'm just picking them off of tapes from around the world. And these guys were fantastic, you know.
They all were huge. You know, it was, for me, it was like making a movie with Los Angeles Lakers. These people were enormous.
They wanted big actors around Banderas to show the contrast between the Norseman and the Arab. And he had absolutely no problem playing the little guy around big guys. Whereas usually if I, deal with the Hollywood actors who are kind of not very tall, they're not very comfortable around people, over 5 feet tall. And it's a little challenging, but Banderas doesn't care.
Actually, they were pretty open about the possibility. They didn't have the other actor yet. And they were pretty open, actually, to offer me one of those characters.
I just moved to Los Angeles, and I had an agent who was lazy, so I fired my agent. And I had nobody. And a week later, the agent calls and says, yeah, there's some horror movie called Eaters of the Dead. They want some, they want some big Nordic actors. So I went, and I had no idea it was a John McTiernan picture. They were very secretive about it. I had no idea it was a Michael Crichton novel. And so they just gave me a little piece to read, and it was really well written, maybe by that gentleman who just walked out. And I did that piece. I waited 3 months, and then they called. And they said, John McTiernan wants to meet you. He never meets with anybody, but he wants to meet with you. So I met with John. I was not the first choice. The studio didn't want me. Michael Crichton didn't want me. The only person who wanted me was McTiernan.
Working for John is very rewarding because it's like we shot most of the film, most of the first unit would only be with one camera. Like a lot of times we'd have for that horse riding scene, we had maybe 2 or 3 cameras, but John really only focuses on his one camera. He has a philosophy that there is only one place where the camera should be.
And we were shooting the reshoots a year later. And I was doing one ending with McTiernan and another ending with Crichton. We shot it on the same lot at Warner Brothers. And I would go from one studio set to the other studio set. And I would get stuff like one guy said, don't tell the other guy what you're doing here. And it was a little bit tragic because one day Crichton, we had become good friends. And he said, Vladimir, it doesn't matter what you do over there, because I have final cut. And sure enough, his cut was the final cut. For better or for worse.
There's a duel at the end, right now, with a character who comes from nowhere that you never knew anything about. It was silly. But they wanted a duel. And they wanted to cut down the Arab sequences. They wanted to sort of hide the fact that he was Arab. And they wouldn't let me use Arab music in the score. And I was not thrilled with that.
More than anything, it was the mother was different. The look of the mother. John felt that the mother should be a grand matriarch, a big kind of a motherly, heavy set, you know what I mean, like the statue. Crichton felt that she should be attractive. Or a little bit, he felt that when I see her, I should get a little bit thrown off her beauty and everything. I actually agree with Crichton on the look of her. And I really did think that walking in with all those heads and then cutting her head off was well done. That was Crichton's cut. McTiernan's was similar, but it was a heavy character and it was darker, and I'm sure it would have worked if we did it. But we didn't, and I think the guys just ended like this because of that. When you think about it, it wouldn't matter which one it was, because it really wasn't about that moment, right? It was about everything else. So here I am getting my first big break, and these guys are acting like children. These brilliant guys are acting like children. I'm going, I cannot believe it. It was surreal to see what was happening. When I found out that they're not going to have a premiere for the film, that they don't care about it, they're going to toss it, and nobody's going to see it. And nobody saw it in the first 6 months. They only saw it later when it came out in DVD and tape and stuff. It was heartbreaking, because this was going to be a possible breakthrough for me and everybody else, not just me, everybody else in the film. Dennis Strohoj could have become a huge star if this thing had been successful. So that was a heartbreak. That was the biggest heartbreak. The weakness is you got 13 characters that you don't develop fully. So when you start to lose them through the battles, you don't really care because you're not connected to them. And I made a suggestion, which unfortunately didn't happen, was we're on this boat. All you have to do is take a handheld camera, walk around the boat as you travel, and give each character 20 seconds. Like let's say this guy is a blacksmith, or this guy is an archer, he makes archery equipment or whatever. And so when this guy dies, you go, oh, that's a blacksmith, oh, that's too bad, it's a shame. But they never got that, so we lost a lot of characters in the first battle. You didn't know who they were. And I thought that was sad, because we shot for 10 months. We had plenty of time to establish characters. There was a scene at the beginning with Dennis Strohoj, Banderas, and Omar, where they're in the tent at the beginning. And in the morning they wake up, and before the little boy comes, and they're passing around this bowl and washing their faces in this bowl, and they're blowing their noses in it. And then they get to Banderas. And he's supposed to wash himself, but he's seen all the other guys were blowing their nose into the bowl. So so they cut the scene there. But what happened after was Dennis Strohoj was speaking Norwegian. He said it in Norwegian. He said something in Norwegian. And Banderas goes, what is he saying? And Omar translated. He goes, don't Arabs believe in cleanliness? And it was really cute. It was really sweet. And it would have tied that scene together as opposed to just cutting it off at passing of the ball. So I'm pretty sure that was probably from Mr. Crichton's decision to make things go faster. Michael's cut is just very simplistic version of life. And McTiernan's cut is a very deep, multi-layered version of life. See, the thing about McTiernan is, to me, film is called motion picture. And so you let the motion and the picture tell a story. I think a guy like Crichton, who's a writer, he's a literal person. So he wants the story told, spoken all the time. And if there's no speaking, no telling, he, I think, maybe was uncomfortable. Whereas McTiernan trusts the pauses and the moments that will tell a deeper story than the words. And it was heartbreaking to see him lose that cut, because it was a beautiful cut. It's just beautiful.
There's a director's cut that is different in several ways, but I can't claim that it's that there was a magnificent movie that's sitting in a can somewhere. There were many things. I'd put the Arabs back in, and I'd put the Arab music back in, and there were a lot of other small scenes. Differences maybe 5 minutes. Maybe it's better leaving it as a myth.
Zorro, the first one before the 13th Warrior, I didn't have that conversation with Martin Campbell, but I had it actually years after when I did the second Zorro. And he said to me, that is a very underrated movie. And but you know, you go. That's actually him was the one who said to me, but it's becoming a cult movie. Just look for you on these websites and stuff like that. Look what the people is saying about that. So it's true. I looked for that, and that's how I started realizing, oh, look at the people following this movie. It's interesting, you know, how the movie developed into something that probably was not pretending to be. Who knows? Maybe that movie is going to be analyzed someday. People is going to look at it again and going to say, there's something interesting about this.